All right, so if you watched my channel before, you know how this works. Ever so often, I revisit the list and update it, right? Because Dallas doesn't sit long enough for any list to stay accurate for a long time. The last time I did this, I ranked my top 10 cities for people moving to Dallas, Texas. And this time, the list didn't just change, it got bigger. Look, choosing the right city out here is harder than most people think going in, right? You're not moving to Dallas, you're moving into a massive metroplex made up of dozens of completely different cities, each one with its own personality, price point, and that pace of life. It's the Costco problem all over again, right? You walk in for a rotisserie chicken and somehow you leave out with a kayak, a 72 pack of paper towels, and a patio set you didn't know you needed. That's what research in this metroplex really feels like without a guide. And over the last several years, my team and I have helped hundreds of families relocate here from all over the country. And this list is built entirely off what we're actually seeing on real calls with real buyers and not just guesswork from some spreadsheet. Every single city that made up my original top 10 list is still there, right? Nothing got cut, but 5 new names have earned their way onto this list. A few of these new additions might genuinely surprise you as well. And then a couple of them barely showed up on anybody's radar just a few years ago. And by the time we're done, you'll understand exactly why relocation buyers keep asking about them. So stick around, guys, because whether this is your first version of this list you've ever seen or you've watched every version that I put out, there's a reason the #1 spot has stayed exactly where it is. All right, so this city almost never comes up first when people start researching a move to Dallas. It's not the name anybody Googles on day one, but once you understand what it actually offers, it's easy to see why relocation buyers, they keep circling back to it once they've done a little more digging. This city sits almost dead center in the metroplex, right between Dallas and Fort Worth, with easy access to both I-30, you get I-20, and that location alone just makes it one of the most desirable and practical picks on this entire list. If you've got one spouse commuting over into Dallas and you've got another spouse commuting over into Fort Worth, this is one of the only cities where both of those commute actually make sense at the same time, instead of one person always losing their mind. Home prices here tend to run noticeably lower than the northern suburbs, right? Which means your money goes a little bit further, whether that's for a bigger lot, a bigger house, or a smaller monthly budget. And the lifestyle here has some real surprises built right into it. I mean, there's an indoor water park that pulls families from all over North Texas. There's a horse racing track that hosts live racing season after season. There's one of the largest flea markets in the entire country, and it's the kind of place where you can spend an entire weekend and still not see all of it. Then if you add in direct access to 2 different lakes, and you've got more outdoor options here than most people expect from a city sitting this close to the center of everything, right? Guys, I've placed buyers here who wanted one thing above everything else: a short commute in both directions without paying northern suburb prices. This city is large and genuinely diverse block by block, so the research matters more than almost anywhere else on this list. But if central location and real value are what you're chasing, this city deserves a much closer look than most people give it half the time. And number 15 on the list, guys, I want to welcome you to Grand Prairie, Texas. And look, I get it. Why should you guys listen to some random guy on YouTube who helps people from all over the country make this move every single month? Look, if this is your first time to the channel, I'm Mark with the Dallas Relocation Guide, and we help people buy, sell, and relocate right here to the Dallas Metroplex. Look, nobody's gonna give you that boots on the ground, giving you the insights, the intel, and the info you need to make the best decision for you and your family moving to the DFW Metro. So if you're thinking about making a move, guys, feel free to reach out, right? All of our contact info is down in the description below and pinned up to the top of the chat. Now, next, let's talk about a city with actual hills. And in the Metroplex, where hills are the last thing you'd ever expect to find, this one definitely takes the cake. All right, so check this out. Everything in North Texas is flat. Then you get to this city and the ground itself starts telling a little bit of a different story. This city sits in the southwest part of the Metroplex and is built around genuine elevation change. You're gonna get some rolling terrain that feels almost out of place this close to Dallas. State parkland, hiking trails with actual grade to them. You're gonna get the views out over the water that most flatland suburbs simply can't offer, no matter how nice the landscaping is. Because this area sits right on a major lake, the outdoor lifestyle here is a genuine selling point. We're talking boating, fishing, hiking, and the state park that draws people from across the Metroplex on the weekends. And the city has quietly been investing heavily in its retail core as well, with newer shopping and dining developments giving residents more reason to stay local instead of driving into Dallas or Arlington for a night out. The housing over here in this area, it tends to run more affordable than the northern suburbs. You're gonna get established neighborhoods that have been there for decades and the newer construction filling in the gaps as the city keeps growing. Lifestyle-wise, this is a family-first, community-first kind of place, right? It doesn't have the flash of the northern suburbs, and it's not trying to at all. What it offers instead is genuine terrain, genuine value, and a lake practically in your backyard. Guys, I've moved families here who specifically wanted two things at once, right? Real outdoor access and a shorter commute into South Dallas or to Fort Worth. Now, one thing to know, the restaurant and retail scene, while it's growing fast, it still isn't as built out as what you'll find up north, so you want to factor that into your everyday expectations. But if the hills, the water, and the value are what you're after in a metroplex that rarely offers all three at one time, this city belongs on your list. So number 14 on the list, guys, I want to welcome you to Cedar Hill, Texas. All right, so now let's talk about a city built on the biggest tech corridor Texas has ever seen. All right, so before Frisco, before Plano's business boom, before any of the newer suburbs had corporate headquarters signs going up, this city was already doing it at the highest level. This city sits directly north of Dallas, bordering Plano, and for decades, it's been known as one of the anchor points of what people used to call the telecom corridor. Major mixed-use development has brought in massive corporate campuses, new office towers, more restaurants, and residential spaces, all built around walkability instead of another strip center off the highway. And this one has a large public university that sits nearby as well. And one of the most underrated things about this city is the food scene. I'm telling you, you will get fat. Along one stretch of road here, you'll find one of the largest concentrations of authentic international restaurants anywhere in the DFW. It's the kind of place where you can eat somewhere different every night for a month and still not run out of options. You're gonna get the established neighborhoods with mature trees and that genuine character, right? Alongside the newer builds tied to the redevelopment that's happening around this business corridor. And because it sits this close to Dallas and Plano without carrying Plano's price tags, it's become a go-to for people who want the commute without the commute adjacent premium. Guys, I've placed several buyers here specifically because they wanted proximity without paying for the zip code next door. Now, there is one thing you need to know. Parts of the city are gonna be a little bit older than most of what you'll see on this list, right? So depending on the neighborhood, you may be looking at homes that need some updating rather than move-in ready new construction. But if you're chasing a short commute, real diversity, and a food scene that punches way above its weight class, this city deserves a serious look. So what city are we talking about, guys? This is gonna be good old Richardson, Texas. Put it on your list, stamp it, because you may want to live there. All right, so there's a stretch of North Texas where the Metroplex runs straight into a massive lake, and one city built its entire identity around that shoreline. But this city sits north of the core of the Metroplex right on the water, bordering some of the fastest growing suburbs anywhere in Texas. And unlike most of the lake access you'll find elsewhere in the DFW, this isn't a marina tucked behind a neighborhood. Nah, that ain't it. This is an actual sand beach, and that beach changes the entire personality of this area, right? Weekends here look like a permanent vacation. The boats are gonna be on the water, the families are out in the sand, you're gonna get a marina district full of restaurants with patios looking straight out over the lake, right? It's the kind of lifestyle most people assume they'd have to drive hours to get, and instead, it's just their normal Saturday. You're getting brand new master plan communities with resort style amenities, you're getting those modern floor plans, and the pricing that still runs more approachable than some of the bigger names sitting right next door. And the great thing about all of this is families are the backbone of this city. Young families specifically, right? The kind that wanted lake access without the lake house price tag and found both at once out here. Now, the one thing to know about this area is growth this fast means infrastructure is still catching up in some places, so expect some construction and some traffic patterns that are still being worked out as this city expands. But if a genuine lake lifestyle and real growth potential matter to you, this city has quietly become one of the strongest plays in North Texas. So which lake area are we even talking about, Mark? Number 12 on the list, welcome to Little Elm, Texas. All right, but let's switch gears and talk about the city that's been sitting quietly near the top of every relocation conversation for years out here. This city sits directly in between two of the biggest names in North Texas relocation searches, and it's held its own this entire time. The reputation here centers on one thing above everything else: schools, schools, schools. This is one of the names that comes up constantly when families start talking about where they want their kids to grow up, and the reputation alone drives a huge share of the relocation interest. But it's not just about the schools, right? There's an upscale outdoor shopping and dining district here that rivals anything you find in the newer suburbs, the patios, the boutiques, and the restaurants built around all walkable tree-lined layouts. We're talking about a place that has its own full events arena that hosts concerts and minor league hockey games throughout the year, and the city is home to one of the most famous high school school football stadiums in our country, a stadium that most NFL programs would be proud to call their own. Now, the housing over here, it tends to be way more established than some of the other growth cities further out, right? You're gonna get the mature neighborhoods, the tree-lined streets, and the genuine character throughout these neighborhoods. New construction is definitely going to be harder to find simply because most of the good land was built out years ago. But that type of scarcity is part of the draw for people who want an established community instead of a construction zone. The families that we've helped move out here, they wanted the reputation without gambling on a city still trying to figure itself out. Now, the one thing to know about this area is because there's less new inventory here compared to some of the surrounding suburbs, the good listings tend to move very, very quick. So you need to be ready to act the moment the right one hits, guys. But if the schools, the community, and the established reputation matter more to you than new construction, this city belongs in the conversation every single time. So number 11 on the list, guys, welcome to good old Allen, Texas. All right, so now I think we're finally caught up to where the original version of the list started, and the city sitting at the number 10 is one that earned its spot the hard way. All right, so a few years ago, I wouldn't have put this city anywhere near this list at all, right? When most people start researching a move to Dallas, they're looking north. Frisco, Plano, Prosper, maybe McKinney if somebody told them about the schools, right? Almost nobody starts here though. But over the last couple of years, this city has quietly become one of the places relocation buyers keep asking about on our calls. This city sits just east of Dallas, right off of Interstate 30, and it's the one and only suburb in the entire Metroplex that gets to claim something most others simply can't. A true lake lifestyle, right? Look, I want you to picture your Friday evenings, right? The sun's dropping over the water, the boats are out, the live music is playing somewhere close by, and you've got dinner reservations on a patio looking straight out over the water. Yeah, it's not a vacation, that's just a regular Tuesday if you live over here. The Harbor District along the water is one of the biggest draws too. You get the restaurants like Zantana, Ben 303, and Gloria's with their crazy strong margaritas. These are gonna be those kind of spots where you sit down for dinner and somehow the whole evening disappears and you never once felt rushed. And for that everyday living type of piece, this city just keeps getting better and better and better. So they finally just got their own H-E-B, and if you are in Texas, you know how big of a deal that is. It's a lifestyle upgrade, and the people out here, they treat it as such. Now, the housing out here, again, is going to give you that real range. If you want established neighborhoods, check. If you want the newer communities, they're out there as well. And you're going to get bigger lots more than you'll find in most of those northern suburbs. And the property tax rate over here, 1.5%, probably the lowest around the Metroplex. Look, this city tends to be a great fit for people who want a little more breathing room, a little slower pace of life, and a real sense of community while still being close enough to enjoying everything that Dallas has to offer downtown. Now, the one thing you need to know about going into this one, and so many people have discovered this place, that the traffic crossing the lake during rush hour can get a little adventurous, so I'm not gonna front with you. Listen, Google Maps will start giving you trust issues real quick, and you'll learn to plan around it like everybody else does. But it doesn't take away from it at all, so number 10 on this list, guys, is gonna be Rockwall, Texas. But on the flip side, guys, let's talk about the city that went from, wait, where exactly is that, to why is everybody suddenly moving out there? I mean, a handful of years ago, most people never even heard of it. Today, it's one of the fastest answers I give on my relocation calls, and the growth out here is impossible to ignore once you see it in person. This city sits about 25 to 30 minutes east of downtown Dallas, right off of Highway 80, and over the last several years, it has completely taken off. Every single time I drive through, it feels like an entire new neighborhood got built while I was sitting at one red light. And that's not an exaggeration at all. That's just what growth looks like out here right now. Look, one of the biggest reasons people keep landing here is simple. You typically get a lot more house for a lot less money, and that is not an exaggeration. And in a lot of cases, you can still find newer homes. You're gonna get the bigger floor plans and the entire communities loaded with the pools, the parks, the walking trails, and the playgrounds, all without your monthly payment trying to become your entire personality. Look, if new construction is high on your priority list, this city checks a lot of those boxes without asking you to compromise on the size. Because a lot of people, when they reach out, that's one of the questions I'm gonna ask you. How many bedrooms, how many bathrooms? What's the square footage you're looking for? Because if you're looking for 2,200 versus 3,000, those prices are gonna be completely different. Now, when we talk about lifestyle-wise, it still holds on to the genuine small-town Texas charm, right? People are gonna know their neighbors, right? The community events, they matter here. I mean, Friday night football still shuts down the whole town. But at the same time, this isn't a sleepy little country town some people remember from a decade ago, right? It's not that. They've got all kinds of new shopping centers, new grocery stores, new restaurants, new commercial development. They got a new hospital, H-E-B, Target. If you go down the street just a little bit, they have Twin Peaks and a bunch of other restaurants and stores. This city has a way of sneaking up on people, right? They go out to see one or two houses, and the next thing they know, they're telling me they think this actually might be our spot. Now, one thing to know before you commit to this one is Highway 80 can get genuinely congested during rush hour. So if you're commuting into Dallas every single day, that needs to be a part of your decision making from the start, not an afterthought that you deal with after closing. But if newer homes, more space, in a community that's still actively growing and adding amenities is what you're after, it's easy to see why this city keeps climbing up the rankings year after year after year. All right, so what area are you even talking about, Mark? Give us the spiel. Well, this one's going to be called Forney, Texas. All right, now let's head down to the number 8 on the list, a city that doesn't get the same attention as the northern suburbs, but the people who actually live there won't stop talking about it. All right, so you know that one restaurant that never has the longest wait in town, but everybody who's eating there keeps telling you, man, trust me, you need to try this place. It's fire. That's exactly what this city feels like. And once you spend some time here, you understand why pretty quickly. This city sits in the southern part of the metroplex, giving you solid access to both Dallas and Fort Worth, right? It's gonna feel more mature, settled, and genuinely community-oriented, right? People know their neighbors here by a first-name basis, quite frankly. Families tend to stick around for a long time, and the community events are the real deal, not just the line on the city website that nobody reads. If you're an outdoors type of person, this city checks a lot of boxes, right? Beautiful parks, miles of trails, sports complexes. You're gonna get those beautiful golf courses, plenty of ways to spend a Saturday afternoon without driving all over the metroplex to do it. And then the housing gives you a genuinely nice mix as well, right? Established neighborhoods with those big mature trees, the newer communities, the larger homes, the larger lots, and the options across pretty much every stage of your life. Now, lifestyle-wise, this one just feels comfortable, right? It's big enough to have the shopping, the restaurants, and the everyday conveniences that you need, but it still holds on to that strong sense of community a lot of people are chasing when they moved to Texas in the first place. I ain't gonna lie to you, we have helped quite a bit of people move down here and get settled into this exact city, and the same phrase comes up almost every single time. It just feels so easy to live here, Mark. Now, the one thing to know about this area, because it sits a little farther south, the commute doesn't make sense for everyone depending on where you work. So that's worth thinking through early on in the process before you get attached to a floor plan, right? But if you like community, if you like parks and that established feel are gonna be high on your priority list, this city absolutely deserves its spot. So number 8 on the list, guys, I want to welcome you to Mansfield, Texas. All right, so now let's talk about a city with one of the best downtown areas anywhere in North Texas. If I had to describe this city in a single word, it would be character. And that's in a metroplex where it feels like a brand new neighborhood pops up every time you open up your Apple Maps. This city has somehow managed to hold on to its personality through everything that's happened. And the heart of all that is going to be down in the historic downtown area. This isn't the kind of downtown you walk through once and check off the list type of situation, though. This is the kind of place where you grab coffee, wander into a few boutiques, you sit down for dinner, you catch some live music, and suddenly realize half of your Saturday is gone. The downtown is full of locally owned shops. You get the wine bars, the genuinely good restaurants. It just feels authentic, right? The housing out here also gives people that real range. It's a little bit more expensive, but you're still getting that range. You're gonna get the beautiful established neighborhoods with the older homes full of character, right? You're gonna get the newer communities with modern amenities. You're even gonna have those opportunities for some larger lots and acreage the farther north and east that you go. Lifestyle-wise, it strikes a nice balance between the two. You got every convenience you need: shopping, restaurants, parks, trails. You get the community events, but it still feels like a place where people actually get out and live their lives instead of just commuting through it every day. It's the kind of city where people move for the schools, the house, or even the location, and then end up falling in love with the lifestyle that they didn't expect from it. Now, one thing to know about this area is because it's become so popular, it's grown a lot over the years, and depending on where you work, the commute times can start adding up relatively quickly. But if you're chasing charm, personality, and one of the best downtown experiences anywhere in Dallas, this city absolutely deserves a spot on your list. All right, Mark, what's number 7 on this list gonna be? Give it to us. We're talking about McKinney, Texas, up there on the north side. All right, but what about a city that went from quiet North Texas town to one of the most talked about communities in the DFW? A few years ago, this was still the quiet North Texas town a lot of people drove through on their way to somewhere else, technically Frisco. Today, it's one of the fastest growing communities in the entire metroplex, growing from just over 30,000 residents in 2020 to nearly 50,000 people today. Look, that's not gradual growth at all. That's an explosion. I mean, every time we drive through there, it feels like another neighborhood popped up overnight. But people aren't moving here just because it's growing, right? They're moving here for the lifestyle that comes along with it. This city has become one of the go-to spots for for people chasing the newer homes, the larger lots, the beautifully master planned communities, and a little more breathing room while staying close to everything happening in the north side of Dallas. The neighborhoods over here themselves are the massive draw, right? Resort-style pools, clubhouses, parks, trails, fishing ponds, amenities that genuinely make some of these communities feel like permanent staycations. If new construction is high on your property list, this city checks an enormous number of your boxes. And all the retail and amenities are catching up with this growth as well. I mean, the main shopping district, it keeps expanding every year over here. They're bringing in names like Barnes & Noble, Total Wine, I think REI's over there, alongside local favorites like Black Hawk Brewery, Hungry Platters, and the Cotton Gin Cafe. For my outdoor people, the city keeps investing heavily in parks and green spaces with more improvements planned for each year. Now, every family that we moved into this city tells me some version of the same thing. They talk about how clean it is, how new it is, and how well planned everything feels. Now, one thing to know about this area, because it's become so popular, the home prices have climbed considerably, and you're going to keep seeing construction because this city is still very much in growth mode because there's nowhere close to being finished. But if you're chasing the newer homes, the master plan communities, more space in an upscale lifestyle wrapped in a small town feel, it's easy to understand why everybody keeps bringing this city up. So number 6 on the list is going to be Prosper, Texas, located right above Frisco and on the west side of McKinney. All right, but now we're officially into the top 5 now. And next up is one of the premier luxury suburbs in all of North Texas. All right, if Dallas suburbs had personalities, this one would show up wearing a blazer, driving something nice, and somehow still be the most likable person in the entire room. Look, this city has built a reputation as one of the premier suburbs in all of North Texas, right? And once you spend time here, it's not hard to understand why. Look, one of the big reasons people fall for this place is the lifestyle piece. At the heart of this city sits Town Square that is genuinely the MVP of the entire area. We're talking about more than 120 shops, dozens of restaurants, green spaces. You get the crazy fountains with one of the most walkable shopping and dining districts anywhere in Dallas. You can spend an entire Saturday here and never run out of things to do. We're talking about coffee at Ascension. We're talking about some shopping at Lululemon, lunch at Flower Child. You can have dinner at True Luxe, Moxie's, or Del Frisco's Grill. You can go out and grab one single thing and somehow, just somehow, end up making an entire day of it every single time. Housing here is known for beautiful, beautiful custom builds, luxury neighborhoods, and larger lots. This is the place built for people chasing a certain lifestyle and a certain level of convenience, not the first rung on the ladder. And while we're talking about convenience, this might be the biggest secret weapon that this city has, right? The airport sits about 10 minutes away, so a lot of executives, CEOs, corporate headquarters are up here. And for my people who travel constantly for work or have families scattered across the country, that's going to be the enormous advantages most suburbs simply can't offer. Now, one thing to know about this area, the reputation and the polish come with a real live price tag. This is one of the most expensive cities in the entire Metroplex, hands down. So it needs to fit both your lifestyle and your budget, not just one or the other. But if you're chasing that luxury living piece, that convenience, and one of the most polished lifestyles anywhere in DFW, it's easy to understand why this city earned the reputation that it has. All right, so number 5 on the list, I want to welcome you to Southlake, Texas. All right, but let's talk about a city that doesn't always grab all the major headlines, but quietly becomes the favorite for most everyone who actually moves there. Now, this might be the single biggest sleeper pick on the entire list because almost nobody starts their Dallas search here, and yet a whole lot of people end up completely falling for it by the time they leave. This city quietly builds a reputation as one of the most desirable places to live in the entire Metroplex. The big piece of that comes down to the location. This city is right in the middle of pretty much everything. Close to Dallas, close to Las Colinas, close to Grapevine, about 15 minutes from the airport depending on exactly where you land in the city. So having this location is like having the fast pass at the amusement park. You might not appreciate it at first, but once you have it, you never want to give it back. Another thing that makes this city stand out is that it doesn't feel brand new, right? It feels established. Beautiful neighborhoods with the mature trees. You're gonna get those winding streets and the homes that genuinely have character to them. This city has a sense of permanence a lot of people deeply appreciate after touring the newer builds elsewhere. Look, if you love being outdoors, it checks a lot of those boxes too, right? You get the parks, you get the trails, those green spaces. You're gonna have plenty of room to walk, run, ride bikes, or just spend time outside without a plan. It's just a genuinely comfortable place to live and call home. One thing to know about this city is because the city's so well established, you won't find nearly as much new construction here compared to some of the growth cities further out. And for a lot of people, that's actually the entire appeal of this area. But if you're chasing a central location, mature neighborhoods, you get the beautiful trees, and a city that simply feels settled and comfortable, this one absolutely deserves a look. So number 4 on the list, Good old Capel, Texas, right up there by the airport, baby. All right, so now we're gonna get into those heavy hitters. Next up is a city that somehow manages to stay near the top of nearly every relocation list for years, and there's a very good reason for that. This city has managed to stay near the top of people's lists for what feels like forever. And considering how much this metro has changed around it, that is genuinely impressive. While new cities keep popping up and grabbing headlines, this one just keeps quietly doing what it's always done well, giving people a little bit of everything that they want. One of the biggest reasons it stays so popular is that it just became one of the largest business hubs in North Texas. Major companies have offices or full headquarters here, right? And that brings real jobs, it brings more restaurants, it brings more entertainment, and an enormous number of amenities right to your doorstep without you needing to drive to them. Then there's gonna be all the mixed-use districts that completely change the game for this city, right? Incredible restaurants, shopping, nightlife, office space, hotels, right? One of the best live, work, play environments anywhere in Dallas. There's always something to do, and the housing gives people a bit of flexibility, right? You got condos and townhouses, you're gonna have established neighborhood with mature trees, you're gonna have luxury communities, larger homes. It's one of the reasons this city appeals to such a wide range of people. The city does a little bit of everything for everyone at every stage, and a location that keeps you close to just about everything happening in North Dallas. Look, if you ask around, you'll hear the same thing from almost everybody who's relocated here. Everything just works. Now, the one thing to know about this area is because this is such a mature city, you won't find nearly as much new construction here compared to some of the other growth suburbs, right? And for a lot of people, that's perfectly fine because what this city offers instead is stability, convenience, and one of the most complete lifestyles anywhere in Dallas. So number 3 on the list, guys, good old Plano, Texas, and you cannot go wrong with Plano. All right, so now let's talk about a city that's absolutely exploded in popularity and is changing right in front of all our eyes. All right, so this city is everywhere right now, and honestly, I don't know if there's another name in North Texas that people ask me about more than this one. This particular city has exploded in popularity because it still offers something that's getting harder and harder to find in Dallas, right? Room to grow. Unlike some of the more established suburbs, this place still feels like you're getting in early on something big. I mean, every time I drive through, there's another neighborhood going up, another piece of land being developed, another sign announcing what's coming next. The amount of new construction out here is genuinely silly. It just doesn't even make sense what they're doing and how they're doing it so fast. The master plan communities are popping up on every corner, complete with the resort-style pools, the parks, the trails, all the event spaces, and the modern floor plans that so many people relocating to Texas are actively searching for. And a lot of buyers looked at what happened up north about 20 years ago and start paying close attention to places like this because they don't want to miss the next chapter of North Dallas's growth. Not because anyone has a crystal ball, no, not because of that, because you can literally watch the change happening in real time, one drive at a time. Lifestyle-wise, it still holds onto real small-town Texas charm right now, right? Community events, local Friday night football, a historic downtown area, neighborhoods full of young families putting down roots for the first time. And on a Saturday morning, you'll see people grabbing coffee downtown. You're gonna see kids playing over in the parks. You're gonna see families driving around checking out the next neighborhood under construction. There's a genuine energy here, and it feels like everybody's excited about where the city's headed next. And honestly, they all want to be a part of watching it happen. When people move here, they understand they're moving into a city that's still actively being built out. And for a lot of families, that's actually part of the appeal because they get to be a part of the story instead of moving into a finished product with nothing left to discover. So if new construction sits at the top of your list, this one is one of the strongest plays anywhere in North Texas right now. Now, the one thing to know about this area is because it sits farther north, some commutes run longer depending on where you work, so that needs to be a part of the conversation early and often, not after you've already fallen for the floor plan. All right, what we talk about, Mark? Fill us in on who's number 2 on this list, guys. I want to welcome you to Celina, Texas. And this is basically Frisco 2.0. And that brings us to the number 1 on the list, the city that somehow continues to check almost every single box for people moving to Dallas. If Dallas Suburbs had a greatest hits album, this one would have half the tracks on it, like Michael Jackson. This city has become one of the biggest success stories in the United States of America. It figured out how to blend opportunity, entertainment, sports, shopping, dining, and a genuinely great neighborhood into a single place. This city is basically turning into the sports capital of North Texas. It has an NFL headquarters and a practice facility. It has a Major League Soccer stadium. It has a minor league baseball park. It has major tournaments and events happening here constantly. I mean, the PGA does this thing up here all the time. On any given weekend, it feels like half the Metroplex is driving up here for something. And then there's the entertainment and shopping, right? The mixed-use districts, the entertainment complexes, and the massive retail developments down the road that have completely changed the lifestyle out here. You get incredible restaurants, incredible rooftop bars, the shopping, live music, and the entertainment, with enough things to do that your calendar fills up so fast whether you plan for it or not. And then there's going to be the business side of all things up here as well. Major companies keep moving up here, expanding up here, investing up here, and they're fueling the city's continued growth year after year. And the crazy thing is, there is no sign of anything slowing down. The housing up here gives people real live options. You can have established neighborhoods with mature trees, you can have beautiful master plan communities, you can have the luxury homes, the townhomes, even opportunities for new construction depending on exactly where you're looking. Lifestyle-wise, this city is hard to beat, right? You can hit a soccer game on Saturday morning, you can have lunch at one of the hundreds of different restaurants, and an afternoon of shopping. Then you can hit a concert or an event to close out the night. That's just a normal day here, not a special occasion. I'm not gonna lie, we probably relocated the most amount of people to this city, and one thing I hear over and over again is simple. It just has everything, Mark. Like we can't get around it. And that's probably the cleanest way to explain why it's still sitting at the #1 spot. It's not perfect. No city really ever is, right? The traffic has increased. It's become more expensive over the years. It's definitely not the hidden gem it used to be about a decade ago. But if you're chasing opportunity, if you're chasing entertainment, if you want the amenities, the beautiful neighborhoods, and the city that checks nearly every box on your list, it's easy to understand why this city continues to pull people in from all over the country. And yeah, I know you've already guessed it. #1 is good old Frisco, Texas. You can't mistake it. Get yourself out there and you'll see exactly what I'm talking about. All right, so there it is, guys. The newly expanded top 15 cities for people moving to Dallas, Texas, guys. Grand Prairie, Cedar Hill, Richardson, Little Elm, and Allen all join the list at 15 through 11, right? Then you have Rockwall, Forney, Mansfield, McKinney, Prosser, Southlake, Capel, Plano, and Celina carrying in the count line the rest of the way. And once again, Frisco holding on to that #1 spot just like it has for years. But look, here's the truth that nobody tells you at the start of this process, right? There isn't one perfect city. Every single family that calls me is different. And the best city for you depends on your budget, your lifestyle, your commute, and what stage of life that you're in. Look, I've had people swear up and down they were moving to Frisco and ended up buying in Rockwall instead. I've had families completely convinced they want to prosper and then fell in love with the Capel the moment they stepped out of their car. That's why I always tell people the same thing. Don't fall in love with the city name. Don't fall in love with the house, right? Fall in love with the lifestyle that actually fits you and your family, whatever that ends up looking like for you, right? But guys, if you're thinking about making a move to Dallas and trying to figure out which of these 15 cities actually make sense for your situation, that's exactly what my team and I do every single day, right? We help people from all over the country figure out exactly where they fit inside this massive metroplex, because these cities may all technically fall under the same DFW umbrella, but make no mistake at all. They are completely different experiences from one to another, and picking the wrong one is an expensive mistake that you gotta fix later. So if you're thinking about making that move, guys, feel free to reach out. All of our contact info is down in the description below and pinned to the top of the chat. And look, I get it. If you're still in deep research mode and you're not quite ready to stop that quite yet, my full Dallas playlist is sitting right over here with neighborhood tours covering nearly every city we just covered, guys. And all you gotta do is click right there.